Thanks very much, Pat, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. As Pat mentioned, we've got a great topic here. We're going to really kind of dig in on how insurers have been dealing with the challenges over the past year and a half as a global pandemic has affected all of us. I think it's easy to forget that it's only 16 months ago that the coronavirus had emerged from China and very rapidly impacted the entire world, resulting in lockdowns, forcing businesses to come up with strategies to deal with the fact that their workers were working in remote areas. And there were a range of issues that then they needed to address very rapidly to be able to deal with everyday business challenges. They had a disconnected workforce, brand new customer expectations of being able to deal with their insurer when they too were locked down. Too many touch points that required people to work together in a much more collaborative way that all of a sudden were very difficult to do in a disconnected fashion. Together with things that were just happening that had nothing to do with the pandemic, like the fact that your amount of data that you're having to deal with is exponentially growing, or that new competition is coming in with new business models, new technologies that were disrupting the market. And at the same time, many insurers, especially the forward-looking ones, were trying to figure out what is going to be our long-term strategy. How can we modernize our existing systems? And many times to deal with these same types of challenges, just thinking, doing it from a more strategic perspective. So we've seen a lot of this that has really impacted the business, and we've seen a lot of effort from insurers to deal with these challenges in a very expedited fashion. So Pat, why don't we take a look and see how these challenges resonate with the audience we have today?
Okay. So here's our first polling question, folks. This is a good one. In 2020, what was the most critical issue affecting your business? So you're going to choose one answer, right? I'm going to read the answers quickly. Disconnected claims workforce, new customer expectations, too many touch points, exponentially increasing data, new competition disrupting the market, emerging technologies, or digital transformation strategy. The most critical issue affecting your business last year, 2020, okay? Disconnected claims, new customer expectations, too many touch points, exponentially increased data, new competition disrupting the market, emerging technologies, digital transformation strategy. All of these, by the way, are appropriate possible answers. I think we've seen all of this, but let's hear from you. What is your most critical issue? All right, we'll give it another maybe 5 seconds. I want to make sure I can see that. I want to make sure we have at least 70% here that are submitting. We're very close now. Okay. All right, one more. Let's take a look at the results. Okay, disconnected claims workforce 6.7, new customer expectations 20%, too many touch points 13%, exponentially increased data 6%, no new competition disrupting the market, emerging technologies 6.7%, and digital transformation strategy. It's a little gray area here for me to see, but it looks like 53.3%. So digital transformation strategies and new customer expectations. Sean, what do you make of this?
Well, I think that's really interesting because I think what it really shows is that, despite the, kind of emergency situation that, the first half of last year presented companies, their biggest challenge remained their kind of their digital transformation strategy that they needed to work through regardless of whether there was a pandemic or any kind of changing work situation. So I think it kind of shows that, maybe the impact of the pandemic was really to kind of be a forcing function to force companies to accelerate their strategies around digital transformation, which is not surprising. I mean, that things that companies get from a benefit perspective from investing in digital transformation are all things that would help them through these types of challenges. Making their their information and their business process much more digital, embracing new technologies such as artificial intelligence and cloud deployment, to really make their systems much more accessible wherever they are in the world, which again has benefit to when you're forced to move your workforce out back to their homes. So kind of all makes sense to me.
Yeah, right. Okay, well,
So,
I'm going to hand the floor back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So, I think what we found was, regardless of whether it was an existing digital transformation strategy or something that you had to react to, the times really required, a brand new look at the situation, a new approach to how to address it. And, there were several things that we identified in talking to our customers and our prospects around their priorities. And, they kind of summarized into these four. So, the ubiquitous access. They need to be able to provide access to systems, to information, regardless of where the customer sat, whether they were in an office, in a cubicle, or working from home. Customer experience remained a high priority, providing ways for customers to be able to do business with you. And in many cases, that required coming up with better ways and better online experiences. I think companies are always looking to find ways to become more efficient, and automation is clearly a big part of that. Being able to not necessarily automate the whole process, to get rid of employees necessarily, but it's really more about helping automate the basics, things that are really obvious to automate. So and also to help you identify those exceptions that you need to spend much more human time on to be able to process. And then finally, compliance. Compliance isn't going away. It's something that both through government regulation and through industry best practices, you need to make sure that you've got a good strategy around. So let's take a look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. I think we also know that probably the three on the left at least were intensified by COVID, if not, driving specific initiatives. So we'll start with ubiquitous access. And when I think of ubiquitous access, one of the key technologies that really helps to drive that is cloud adoption. So if you want to think about it that way, once you can deploy things in the cloud, they become ubiquitously available, right? You can access them through standard web browsers or other web technology and be able to access it wherever you are in the world. So that is really one of the initial areas. And one of the things we found was that the information growth that companies are dealing with is just continuing to accelerate. You can see here over the past 20 years, we've seen some pretty dramatic rise in the amount of content, amount of data, that information that organizations are forced to manage. But that is not slowing down. If anything, that continues to grow at exponential rates. We see customers that are dealing with billions of customer communications annually through email messages, SMS, and just communication through web forms and even paper correspondence. So that's going to continue to drive a priority. And that really makes you think, like, what do I want to do in terms of managing that information? Do I want to invest in new hardware to store in my data center, or do I want to have some flexibility and be able to use some of the commodity capabilities that are available through cloud services? And it also gives a lot of value from being able to pay as you go and be able to be able to manage your expenses in a scaled way. So one of the things that Nuxio believes very strongly is that the cloud really needs to be about providing you choices. Choices to be able to deploy, choices to be able to leverage new technologies, choices to be able to leverage different ways of storing information. And maybe the question is no longer on premises versus cloud, but it's about what type of cloud infrastructure do I want? And one of the things that we understand is that there's no one size fits all here. One of the things that the cloud really provides organizations is flexibility, and that's really important. Whether you want to manage that information in a cloud architecture, great. Or you want your vendor to be able to provide you a managed service that you don't have to manage at all. I think both of those configurations are ones that we see a lot of adoption for in the market. And again, different enterprises have different strategies on that front. And the other thing is sometimes you need to have a hybrid configuration where some sensitive information really does need to be stored on premise, within your four walls and be able to be more tightly managed. So these types of hybrid implementations are also something that's very important that you have systems that support. And most importantly, you want to make sure that you can operate at cloud scale. And again, that's driven by the rapid increase in information that you need to manage, as well as many businesses that are scaling very quickly as well. Second big thing is around customer experience. And again, I think a big part of this is being able to make sure that you are extremely responsive to customers, that you provide them answers, or you provide the tools, the self-service tools, to be able to allow them to access the information. So couple of big challenges that we see organizations struggling with is, first of all, the amount of varied types of content that make up today's business processes. It's no longer just paper forms and inspection reports that are filled out on clipboards. You have information that is filled out in web forms that are submitted. You have correspondence that might come in as paper. It might come in as email. It might come in as a form that is submitted on your website, as well as increasing use of multimedia to help document a specific claim, specific situations, so that the insurance agencies have as full a view of this. And we've seen a rise in this actually over the past year and a half as organizations have been more disconnected. You don't necessarily have an adjuster coming out to do a visual inspection themselves. People are submitting photographs or video evidence to help support their claims. And that provides another file type that you need to manage within your systems. And in many cases, with legacy systems, that means you're storing some information in one location, other information in the other location. What you're really looking for is a solution that can manage all this information and organize it in a way that allows you to get that information, make that information available to your customers, or be able to access that information rapidly so you can provide the information to your customers. I mentioned, as you have different systems in your organization, and we see this, we see companies averaging over 9 systems that they have within their organization that are handling this information. And as you start to deploy new capabilities, often those create new silos. And that's one of the things that we realize is that these silos are not going away. There is no real initiative to move all of your content into one system, because there's no one system that can manage everything that your business does. So what you really need is an approach where a system has the ability to access all of your information, so that at least from an access perspective, that there's one place you can go and search for information. It's going to help you find it, whether it's in Acrobat or Salesforce or Box or Dropbox or a legacy system, that you have the ability to access that content without having to hunt down each one of those different systems to find the information. That's really the approach that forward-looking companies are looking for today. Next is around efficiency and automation, and this is where we see content management, content services really providing value for organizations, because you really want to be able to extract meaningful information from the content you're getting. You want to use that data to help automate processes. And increasingly, we see organizations that are looking for the ability to identify those insights that are going to be front and center when you're making a decision about a claim, those insights that are going to allow you to understand what new business models might be good for the organization, might be able to identify what new products you want to offer your customers to grow your connection with that customer. These types of insights are extremely important. But it all starts with data. We see business systems like Salesforce, ERP systems, customer relationship management systems that really leverage data very well to help you to organize your business, to help you to automate your business. But when you're dealing with a variety of different content formats, Office documents, PDFs, rich media like video and photography, you need to be able to extract that data in order to be able to truly leverage it. So what you're looking for is you want to make sure that your content ultimately is readily accessible, and you can do that by having metadata associated with the content that allows you to find it very quickly. That metadata also provides context, so you know what this document is related to, and you can attach it to a business case, or you can indicate that this is, photographic evidence of an accident claim, for example. You need that information, obviously, to be available anywhere, and that's where the cloud really provides some great capabilities. But you need to make sure that you have a full set of governance and security around that information, so that you can make sure that you continue to comply with not only your company's best practices, but also government regulations that you're forced to adhere to. And the final area is, in fact, around compliance. So let's, as we know, there are a variety of government regulations. Those government regulations are unlikely to lessen over time. And in fact, they're probably very likely to increase over time. So you need to make sure that you've got a solid foundation here so that you can adapt to new regulations, whether it's GDPR or the California Consumer Privacy Act, or, kind of existing regulations around ADA or the UK Equality Act or various European regulations. So what kind of challenges do organizations have in being able to adapt to some of these new requirements? We see a lot of legacy solutions, especially those that are running on mainframe computers, that just don't have the capability to provide distributed or mobile, let alone mobile requirements, right? They really aren't systems that can be deployed to the cloud. And we see a lot of even more recent legacy systems that are running on relatively modern architectures that really have limited abilities to deploy in the cloud. They might tell you they can. They might provide services that help you manage it. But is it doing it efficiently? Is it doing it so it's a cost-effective way for you to take advantage of the cloud? And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but there are some real challenges with legacy solutions just checking a box with cloud capabilities. And often that's because they have outdated architectures that really limit their ability to take advantage of the ability to scale within a cloud environment. What this means is ultimately it's going to be expensive to operate and maintain. A lot of times when you have legacy systems that claim cloud support, when you deploy it in the cloud, you have to deploy for kind of your maximum resource usage. How much storage do you need? How much compute power do you need? How much search capability do you need? And if you have to lay out maximums for all of these, you're going to be paying that maximum charge 24/7, 365 days a year. What you really want is a system that's much more flexible so that you can pay more as you go and be able to scale up and scale down to address your specific needs at the time. Integration with other systems is extremely important, and we find that that's an increased requirement for organizations, which is really smart, actually, as they embark on their digital transformation journeys. They want to be able to integrate data sources, whether it's your CRM or your ERP systems or existing databases or legacy systems, with your new business processes. And ultimately, you want to make sure that you have the flexibility you need to be able to address compliance mandates as they come out, and you don't have to retool, you don't have to do any kind of significant development to be able to meet new compliance requirements as they come. And ultimately, I think our position is that this old way of doing things is just not working, and I think the pandemic has only proven that with some of the innovation that we've seen over the last year and a half. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things you want to look for if you're looking to implement content management, content services as part of your digital transformation journey. You want to make sure that you're supporting a variety of digital form factors. And as I mentioned, we see an increasing amount of these different types of information becoming really core to business processes. You want to have rich support for video, for photography, photos, and other images. You want to make sure that you've got great capabilities for transforming any remaining paper correspondence or forms that exist within your organization, and make those digital as early in the process as you can. If it's moving from paper forms to online digital forms, that's great. If it's providing great capture capabilities to quickly transform submitted PDFs into usable data, I think that obviously works well. And it helps you to bridge the various information silos that you have within your organization. The more information you have in a digital format, the easier it is for you to federate that information together and be able to provide, kind of one easy access point to be able to get at information wherever it exists in your system, and regardless of how old that information is. So it allows you to bring in the historic record to help inform your future decisions. We talked about artificial intelligence briefly earlier, and I think this is an area which is really exciting for organizations because they really are looking to be able to make sense of, these petabytes of information that they are forced to manage. It's just a lot of information, and how can I find that needle in the haystack that is really going to help me to understand what's going on with my business, how my business is changing, how I might be able to improve my product, to improve customer satisfaction, or maybe gain market share. So we see that as a really important thing. We've talked about embracing new content types. We talked about governance and security. I think cloud adoption, again, is an extremely important thing that we're seeing a lot of effort around. And one of the reasons for that is that it can bring down the costs of managing your data center. But again, I think it's important to look at that more carefully to make sure that you're really investing in the type of cloud architecture that is going to drive that type of savings. The other piece about the cloud is you want to make sure that it's operating at the scale that you're going to need it to. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but probably next year you're going to find that your amount of information has grown by a significant amount. And does the system continue to keep up with that growth in content as your business grows, as the amount of information that is exchanged between various parts of your business and with your customer base is growing? And then the final point, and we're going to start to talk about this a little bit more as we move through this presentation, is making it easy. I think that's a really important thing, and one of the challenges that organizations have is that there's lots of great technology out there. There are a lot of great vendors with great platforms out there, but can you customize those platforms to be able to help your business? And I think that's an area where over the past couple of decades, I think we've seen customers struggle with that. They work with great partners who have great development teams, but the process of customizing many of these solutions is arduous. It's lengthy. It can be very expensive, and it's not always successful. And I think that's an area where we need to look at how can we improve that? How can we make it quicker, faster, easier, and more reliable to build the types of solutions that are really going to drive your business success? And I think one area that can really provide value is the rise of content services platforms. Now, content services is kind of a new name for enterprise content management, but it's actually quite different. And if we look at it, content services is really focused on providing a multi-repository approach. No longer are you going to have a monolithic single platform that has all of the information stored within it. We've got too many great tools out there that we might want to use. Maybe for an insurance claim situation, you want to use something like Guidewire, which has great tools for helping to manage your claims workflow. But you need to have some place to store all the critical information that helps drive those decisions. There's two repositories right there, and that's just a quick example that you've got legacy systems also, you've got ERP and customer relationship management solutions, as well as probably other data sources within your organization. So the ability to support multiple repositories is extremely important. You also want to make sure you have a single platform that really helps provide all of your content services capabilities, all the way from when you're capturing information to when you're searching for information, to when you're transforming that information or viewing it within the system. I think one of the challenges that customers have when they engage with enterprise content management vendors is that they've acquired capture from one place, governance capabilities from another. Maybe they've added search capabilities that they're OEMing from a third vendor. And these platforms become very difficult to manage. And that's one of the challenges that leads to the lengthy development cycles. Cloud native is really a critical aspect of content services, and I think it's an important success factor for organizations that are looking to pursue a digital transformation strategy. Just being in the cloud is not enough. You want to make sure that you've got the flexibility to be able to take advantage of the scalability that's possible with the cloud, the accessibility, obviously, that's possible with the cloud. But you want to make sure that you're doing it in a cost-effective manner. We'll talk more about that. Low code's important. Again, I really feel like that low code can be, kind of the secret sauce that unlocks the value of content services or enterprise content management in terms of being able to significantly reduce the amount of time it takes you to develop and deploy a solution. It also makes it much easier for you to have an iterative approach with your solution so that as you find new ways of doing things, you can quickly make those changes. As you get new requirements, you can quickly change your processes to accommodate those new things. And, again, I think cloud consumption pricing is a big aspect of that. So what are some opportunities what should you be thinking about as an insurer and how you can modernize your processes? I think there's kind of 4 key areas here that we've talked about. So let's talk about each one of these. Certainly one of them is the promise of artificial intelligence. And I think, one of the things that companies have really invested significant amount of time throughout the technology world is in trying to take advantage of artificial intelligence and do it in a way that really provides value to the business and doesn't end up being something that is so overwhelming that you really can never get to where you're providing value for the business. 7 key things that I think are important here. One is recognizing a variety of different content types. It's not just about textual information. It can be about other types of data as well. You want to be able to use it to extract that useful content data from the content. As I mentioned earlier, data is kind of the key to being able to enable you to leverage your content. And so you need to be able to find ways to automatically extract that content, extract that information, the data from your documents. That helps you enrich your metadata, so you have better context for your information. You have other ways to be able to search for information, especially you think about it, like you want to search for a photograph. I know it was a photograph of a 1970 Ford Mustang. Where is that in my repository? Well, unless you have somebody that's typed that information in, or unless you've named that file appropriately, it may be impossible to find that photograph, right? So being able to have ways of having metadata that describes that so you can quickly search for it is hugely important. You want to predictively deliver information. So again, having better context, having better clues to be able to identify that information really is the enabling function. Data is the enabler for being able to use your content. Insights, again, I mentioned this a few times now. Being able to analyze the usage and importance of information gives you more insight into what information needs to be prioritized, how does it need to be related to your existing processes. You want to help to recognize the patterns of usage or the patterns of the types of content that you're getting, so you can be able to categorize information properly, so you can use it in other ways in the business process. And we will definitely touch on that one further. And you want to identify outlying data points, things that just don't make sense with the rest of the content that you're getting, so you can move that into more of a manual exception process and be able to take care of that quickly. Now, there are a lot of technologies out there, a lot of AI technologies out there. And let me just kind of touch on a few because I think they're all valuable in different ways. We see a lot of tools that are available on public cloud infrastructures that provide pre-trained machine learning capabilities that allow you to do OCR, transform your scanned images into textual information that you can easily search or extract useful information from. We see tools for being able to do sentiment analysis, so you can escalate that angry customer correspondence and separate it from one that's complementing your quick turnaround. We see a lot of translation services available there, and being able to support that in a global workforce, I think, is extremely important. As you start to bring in rich media, especially video or audio files, having transcription services so that you can actually understand what is being said in those videos or what's being said in that audio file. Again, to help you to find that information very easily by searching for maybe a phrase that was used that you heard in some video or audio. I'm not even sure which it is, and you can search for that phrase and be able to find that information very rapidly. Now, what's really interesting is that solves kind of one issue, and I think those are kind of like generic capabilities that everybody needs. They provide a great capability, but they don't really address specific business challenges. So, like, for example, if I had a customer that sent me this photograph, I want to know more about what's going on in this from an auto insurance claim perspective. I want to know what vehicles are involved. I want to know what kind of damage we're talking about. If there are people in it, I'd like to be able to identify those so I can make sure that my customer or the customer that the person that they're making a claim against is in that photograph. And you can see here how custom machine learning can help us to be able to extract relevant information from those from these photographs, to be able to, again, use this data to be able to execute a claims process, or to be able to better inform the claims process overall. So, for example, let's take a look at a claims process here. We can use artificial intelligence to help classify information, so we can associate information with the right claim, so that we can identify it within the claim case folder to be able to tell them this is a picture of the accident scene. We might also use it to, again, as if something doesn't match right, we can use that to help an exception process. We can extract specific information from a form, for example, that might allow us to know exactly what types of vehicles we're looking for, and that might actually inform our ability to extract meaningful information out of a photograph. And most importantly, we can use it to intelligently route these case files to the right level of case workers, so that we can get the claim handled as quickly and as efficiently as processed. But there are also some new ways to use these new insights to add new capabilities that might not exist in your claims processes today. So one is image processing. We can clean up these photos. We can make it so that they're easier to view. Maybe clean out some of the the sun glare or the fog or other. Maybe there's just smudge on the front of the lens when they took the pictures. So we can do some image processing to help clean things up and make sure that we can identify it properly. We might actually be able to use it to identify duplicate photos. Maybe they're used in completely different cases, and that might be an indication of fraud. So we can use that to identify fraudulent information, or when we have, again, data that just doesn't match the situation. It's an outlying piece of content, doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe we need to take a closer look at that to see if there's something fraudulent there. Damage comparison. So, this is not going to be an exact science, obviously, until you have a lot of data that underlies it. But we can use the photographs or other video or other rich media evidence that has been provided to be able to get some rough estimates of what kind of damage might be, what kind of damage we might be looking at here, and what kind of repair costs we might need to be able to support. And again, intelligent routing as you're doing the estimate to make sure that information is getting to the right people at the right time. And these technologies are not exclusive to one another. One of the things that's great about artificial intelligence is you can combine multiple types of artificial intelligence together, either on different document types or maybe even on the same document types. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is replace the amount of manual input that's required to be able to get that important data out of your content. You want to improve search results so you can quickly find information in what's going to be just an increasingly large lake of information that you need to manage. You want to help to improve automation by giving it more data to be able to execute on. And you can actually even use this information to help automate your retention policies. Again, by knowing what kind of information it is, knowing what case it's associated with, you know what kind of retention or records management requirements you have for that, so you can apply those automatically and not have to do it in a manual fashion. Again, that is going to help provide significant value for you, because you're going to be able to make sure that you're going to be able to ensure that information is being managed correctly, which is going to give you give your legal department a lot of reassurance. Low code I mentioned a couple of times here. And again, I think this is really transformative, potentially transformative for organizations. Now, low code is not no code, right? This is not configuration within Microsoft Word or Excel. This is being able to lower the technical requirements and certainly the experience required to be able to develop solutions. It's going to make it so you have a larger group of people to call on to do your development, but it's also going to allow them to become significantly more productive. They're going to be much quicker at being able to do it because they can do it with configuration, with drag and drop, instead of having to write hundreds or thousands of lines of code to be able to implement the system. Low code also makes it very easy to create templates or reusable components that you can just drag and drop into your existing, your new solution. A lot of point and click tools to just configure things rather than having to write code to declare certain things. Visual design, whether you're laying out a customer or your employee user experience, or whether you're designing a work process. You can use drag and drop and be able to create a flow chart that actually represents the actual business process. And I think another piece, and I mentioned it earlier, but I want to hit it home a little harder here, is that it supports this iterative development process. So one of the things we know, and certainly I know from being in the industry for 20 years now, is that the first deployment is never right. It might be very good. It might address the major challenges that you're organizing, but you're always going to have feedback from your end users, from your customers on how you can improve it. Over time, you're going to realize, well, we solved these 5 problems, but we've got 2 more that are still slowing us down or costing too much. That ability to do iterative development really is enabling, because it not only allows you to make changes after the fact, it lowers the pressure on that initial development, because you know you don't have to get it exactly right, because you will have an easy ability to go back and iterate on it over time. So let me ask one more question here, Pat, if we might, to get a little bit so we can talk about, so we can see what type of requirements are driving today's information technology strategy.
Absolutely, Sean. So our second polling question asks our audience, what is the most important requirement driving your IT strategy? Right now, just keep in mind, most important requirements. So you're going to pick one: paper-reliant business processes, disconnected information sources, insights hidden within existing information, support for new rich media and other formats, ensuring compliance and security, cost of maintaining data centers, ability to keep up information growth, or expensive development costs. Now, depending on your business function here, or the business functional area that you work in, you may decide one of these questions is the best, but let's think big picture and choose the most important requirement overall in your organization that's driving your IT strategy. I think that's a better way to think about it. Obviously, if you're working in the data center, you might choose cost of maintaining the data center, but obviously we want you to think bigger picture than that. So the question is, what's the most important requirement driving your IT strategy? And there's a lot of choices, and I'd like to give us another little bit of time here, because we're waiting for, here we go, now they're starting to come in. I always like to be able to release the results that are meaningful, and so we want to make sure enough of you have had a chance to answer the question. Paper-reliant business processes, disconnected information service sources, insights hidden within existing information. I love that one. Support for new rich media and other formats, ensuring compliance, cost of maintaining data centers, ability to keep up information growth, and expensive development costs. Those are your choices. All right, I think we're done. I'm going to go to the results. Let's take a look. Yeah, so this is not too surprising. Paper-reliant business processes, 25%, 37.5% disconnected information sources. Isn't that the truth? All right, 12.5% insights hidden within existing information. No one answered support for new rich media and other formats. No one answered ensuring compliance and security. No one answered cost of maintaining data centers. Now that I actually mentioned it, 12.5% of you said ability to keep up information growth, and 12.5% of you said expensive development costs. All right, well, clearly, disconnected information sources wins the prize. What do you make of these results, Sean?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting results here. I mean, I toyed with making these multiple choice, and my fear was that people were just going to check every box, but because I think they all are relatively common challenges that we see. But it's no surprise to me to see disconnected information sources being the largest response here. I mean, I think that's, especially as as a vendor here that's talking about considering a modernization strategy. The first question that we get is, well, what do I do with my existing systems? How do I deal with all the legacy historic information that I've got in my system? And as I mentioned, the other big challenge is that one system doesn't govern all, right? Even if you've got something like Guidewire that's helping you manage your claims work processes, it doesn't do everything. There's information that it needs that is managed elsewhere. So this makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about that a little bit here, Pat? Let's talk about how do we get there from here? I mean, I think that's a question that it's kind of the next question you should be asking once you kind of have an appreciation that there's something new out there. How do I take advantage of that? I've got a lot of existing systems. I've got a lot of existing processes. How do we get there? And I think, the way we look at this and the way we've seen customers have real success in implementing content services is first to focus on those disparate information sources and find a way to connect all that information together. And what you really end up doing then is providing a single service that allows you to have access to all of your information. And again, think about content services as a service, not as a platform, not as a user experience, but as a service that can be added to other systems, whether it's Guidewire, whether it's your existing ERP or customer relationship management systems, your HR systems, whatever you're using, you have the ability to add content services capabilities to those systems with something like Nuxio with the content services platform. You have the ability to integrate multiple repositories. You can extend the value of those existing systems. So it's not a rip and replace type of scenario we're talking about here. It's let's add content services. We can pull in content from our legacy systems. And then over time, as we have success, as we start to leverage the value of content services, we can start to consolidate that information. You can do migration efforts to move things out of existing repositories, potentially into a common repository. You may be able to then decrease your total cost of ownership by decommissioning some of the existing systems. Having a content services system obviously allows you to support cloud initiatives, and you can start to embark on those and find out ways that you can better leverage the cloud services. And then importantly, it provides a single platform that is future-proof. That's one that you can start to take advantage of over time. And let's take a look at an example here. So we had a customer of ours, which was a top 10 insurer, and they were looking to provide content capabilities as a service. They had a lot of legacy systems. They had done acquisitions, so they had systems from multiple vendors that were pulled together that they were still maintaining. They had over 2 billion documents, 2 billion objects that they were looking to manage, again, from in various systems. And they had over 30,000 users across 7 different lines of business. So this is a very large company that was dealing with a lot of information and a lot of different systems. So what they did was they did data extraction by using the APIs that are provided within the content services platform. They were able to develop an architectural design that abstracted the individual vendors through an API service layer. So they helped to define that and to find a way to not just federate all the existing content that they had, but tie directly into their key business systems. So their business systems were, in effect, supercharged with these content services capabilities plugged in. At the end of the day, they were able to significantly reduce their total cost of ownership. By using the cloud, they were able to decommission a lot of their existing hardware investment, focus on using the cloud as an infrastructure and really drives considerable cost savings. They were able to add rich media capabilities. So they were able to start to use, even though we didn't see anybody list that as their top objective, I guarantee you, if you haven't already been hit with this requirement from your customers, it's going to be coming, or you're going to find competitive pressures that are going to force you to consider looking at this. But consider rich media as an important new way to be able to communicate with your customers. And their information management team gained strategic value within the organization because this became a really important platform, really important initiative for the overall business as it was a part of their digital transformation journey. It was an important component that's really enabled them to find great success. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I think that, what ultimately you're looking to do is unlock as much business value from these systems as possible. And I think, two key issues associated with the pandemic are the ability to deliver access anywhere, anytime, and to be able to improve claim speed and accuracy. But there's a lot more value that you get along the way. You get archiving and compliance capabilities. You're able to bridge existing content silos, and ultimately you're able to reduce your overall costs. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to share with everyone today.